Chapter 5. Inside a Dog's Mind, Poppy's Purpose. Written and narrated by Michelle Holland. Chapter 5. On day 4, something very scary happened, and a traumatic experience soon followed. I'd been sitting out in the garden in the late evening sunshine when suddenly loud bangs, sizzling and crackling noises blasted over the top of our home. Looking up into the sky, sprinkles of fire flew all around, slowly falling towards me. My instinct was to run to safety. Where was Mom? I couldn't see her. My body began to quiver in fear. The noises got louder and hurt the inner part of my ears. Looking towards the back gate, I knew this was my only option. Launching myself upwards and over, I cleared the gate easily. Bang, 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 crackle, sizzle, crackle. I ran as fast as my legs would take me, desperately trying to get away from the danger lurking high above. The noises seemed to follow me, and I had no choice but to keep on running. I didn't have a clue where I was going. Through the fields I tore, up a steep hill which I found tough going, and this confirmed how weak and unfit I was, as I continuously gasped to catch my breath. Glancing to my right, I darted into the safety of a cluster of dark green bushes. Curling my body up into a tight ball, I lay rigid with fear. I haven't a clue how long I stayed there, but by the time the horrible noises had stopped and I slowly crawled out, all around was black and eerie. A few stars sparkled in the sky, but I didn't have a clue where I was. Where was Mum? Putting my nose to the ground, I tried hard to retrace my tracks. At the bottom of the steep hill, I didn't have a clue which way to turn. Panic engulfed me. I was thirsty and tired. I just wanted to go home. I had no option but to crawl back into some thick undergrowth. I'd heard stories of wild bears and other terrifying species hunting through the night in search of their next meal. I needed to stay safe and keep awake, even though exhaustion riddled my poor body. I held my breath as the branches above me crackled. Feeling terrified, I curled up tensely. I wasn't sure how many hours I lay there, but when a glimmer of light eventually began to flicker through the tiny gaps in the bushes, a flicker of hope erupted inside. Still not wanting to move, I decided to stay where I was, just in case a grizzly bear was waiting to pounce on me. I felt lost and alone and not sure what to do next. I listened as hard as I could for anything that sounded familiar, but all I could hear was silence. After what seemed like hours just lying there, I began to think I was hallucinating when I heard a familiar sound hollowing in the distance. I held my breath in anticipation, but more silence followed. I must be hearing things. "Poppy! Poppy!" I heard a voice call out. "Mom?" Quickly crawling out from the safety of my den, I stood and looked ahead. The figure of a lady who looked like a beautiful vision of Mum was walking towards me. Am I dreaming? I stood out of sight with my body close to the bushes, not daring to move any further. I needed to be 100% sure this person really was Mum, and not just a booby trap. "Oh, Poppy, where are you?" her anguished voice called out once again. It was Mum. "Woof!" I managed to call out. I took 2 steps forward from my hiding place. I stood looking at her in disbelief. She took a few more steps towards me, and I growled. "I don't know why I did that. I've been out looking for you all night. I've been worried sick," Mum said, avoiding my eyes. "Come on, let's go home," she told me before turning around and heading off in the opposite direction. Oh heck, was Mum going to leave me here? I took a few steps forward, keeping some distance between us. I could see her. I held my breath in anticipation, but more silence followed. I'm glancing over her shoulder with a gentle smile on her face. Eventually she sat down for a rest. I decided to stay where I was. Mum then got up. I followed once again at a distance, and we continued to play this getting up, sitting down game for maybe a mile or so. Mum turned to look at me before sitting down onto the grass, and suddenly she started to cry. "Oh, Poppy, I thought I'd lost you. Those wretched fireworks must have frightened the life out of you. They should be bloody banned," she sniffled. Looking at the tears running down her face, I quickly headed towards her. Leaning forward, I let my tongue gently lick her tears away. She looked completely shocked and continued to stay as still as a statue, my harness and lead clutched tightly in her left hand. As it slowly moved towards me, I decided not to object, and it wasn't too long before we arrived back home. Mum put a key into the front door, but still feeling shaken and concerned, I looked up at the sky to check it was safe before following Mum through to the kitchen. I watched as she filled up a glass with fresh cold water from the tap. It then rapidly disappeared down her throat. I was desperate for a drink too, and looked up at her, whimpering. "Oh, Poppy, what am I like? A bad mum. That is what I am. You need a drink too, don't you? I bet you are not only thirsty, but also famished after your recent adventure." After a delicious breakfast and lunch combined, an enormous wave of exhaustion suddenly overwhelmed me, and it wasn't long before my eyes started to close. It took my body a couple of days to finally recover from my recent exertions, but once I finally regained my strength, shamefully I let my naughty bad manners return. Looking back at my disgraceful and hurtful behaviour, I haven't a clue why Mum hadn't given up on me. I'd bite her constantly, her ankles, her arms, and any other part of her body I could reach, sometimes even drawing blood. I always felt guilty and ashamed afterwards, but I just couldn't help myself. I didn't even know why I was doing this to her. She never raised a hand to me, and had only ever shown me love and kindness.